Yo, it's Daniel and Pax. We're back for a little bit of a recap on our campaign play along shenanigans. I just wanted to do a retrospective of how things went, less about the campaign itself, although a little bit since that's just, how we tell how the decks went, and more of a like what do we learn from these investigators? That now that I've realized that the investigators aren't even on the screen, it's just a pile of cards. It's okay. Oh, you've got Susie. You've got Susie.
Yeah, I brought Susie up. I
All right,
decided to bring.
that's good.
She's
So
she's included.
yeah, all right. So we played Susie. I played Marion, who isn't pictured here, but I'm going to show the decks on the screen as well from Arkham Build. So there's a little bit of progression since we had some level 0 decks to go with, but importantly, we were playing with a limited card pool, just core set, revised core set, Return to Night of the Zealot, and the starter decks, investigator starter decks, as well as the campaign we were playing, Edge of the Earth, which I would to say makes for a really damn good card pool. If you just want to play with one other set than in the investigator sets, Edge of the Earth is like it's stacked, man.
Yeah, Edge of the Earth is just it's it's a set that is probably, I don't want to say like consistently on like the upper end of power level in the game, but like it's just got a lot of good cards with good fundamentals, right?
Yeah. So I didn't have a problem building a Marion deck without any of the Marion stuff that comes in her set. So what I'm going to do, I'll start. I think I've got less to say. I've talked about it throughout this run a bit, but I think you learned a lot more about Susie just having played her probably for the first time in a real campaign. You played her like
hmm
in a standalone or something before?
Yeah, I did like a scenario one with 0 XP once just to test out how some of this felt.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a standalone with like 19 XP again, just to kind of test out how it felt. And I didn't quite get the same feel for it that I did from this. So yeah, this was definitely pretty eye opening. But if you want to go ahead first with Marion,
Yeah. This is the level 0 deck I had in the thick of it since I was allowed to. No permanents for Susie, sadly.
hmm
And I took 2 copies of Brain of Cthulhu and 1 copy of Sweeping Kick. The rest of the deck here, as you can see, I picked Fortune. Um, was kind of trying to do a little bit of everything. I wanted to. I've played a lot of Guardians on this channel recently, actually, and with you too.
hmm
I think people give them a bad time, and whenever someone gives an investigator or a class or whatever a card a hard time, I'm always like, I'm gonna play them now. See our run with Sister Mary, but
yeah, okay, all right.
but I know in particular you are not one of these people who likes to just crap all over Guardians. So
No, well, I mean, you know, I I like Guardian a lot, and I specifically I like using guns in Guardian, which most people really, really, really do not like doing. And I don't know, like to a certain extent, I'm sure it's a player count thing. I'm sure it's a personal comfort level thing. Like, I'm not going to deny that it's a lot easier to slap a melee weapon and play and then be good. But I just like a deck that shoots stuff. So I'm already out there with Guardian builds that are maybe less meta.
mhm.
But um, in terms of like the efficacy of being able to do non-fighting stuff, this kind of blew my mind.
and
Like,
and it was there from the beginning, right? You can see they've got 2 copies of evidence, 2 copies of Look What I Found, and you think that that's not that many clues, but you can see my ally of choice was Greta Wagner, who gets clues. So that was there was a little bit of a at the beginning of the campaign an idea of let's use bandages to get extra clues out of her, and I think that happened like the first scenario or two, and that kind of was it.
yes, I think that that might have happened in part one or part two, like once or twice, and then I never had an opportunity to play them again.
Yeah, but that
And I'm sure that if like I think I kept being forced to devour them during upkeep. Like everything else in my hand was too good, so I had to get rid of the bandages. Right, that
yeah,
kind of thing.
if you even saw them, right? That was the other part of the Susie deck that we'll talk
Well,
about.
I mean, Yes, yeah. We'll talk about that when we talk about Susie. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but I think Marion and the Guardian cards here, as well as the off-class ones you already saw, you get this big boon of stapling draw one card to every event. Not every event, if you play more than one, of course, during the round, and then you get that extra action, kind of. So without cards that I think are kind of made for her, like the improvised cards or the Glimmer of Hope or something, where you always have something you can play. I really needed to find ways to take advantage of this. And uh, the original idea was, well, I've got some economy cards that cost an action, but they're kind of good if you don't have to spend an action to play them. So 21 or Bust is a card that I had a lot of fun with throughout this campaign. I had 2 copies at the beginning, actually went down to just one and added Hot Streak. You'll see in a second. But kind of my intention was, what if I play these fast cards like Glory, Evidence, Lucky, Live and Learn, and then get to piggyback the events, the fighting events that, oh, look what I found as well. The fighting events that do cost an action kind of gets you even that much more action efficiency in your turn. And I would say that that was not always what happened, but when it did, I think it was good. But to line up your turn such that you're first taking an investigate, failing it, playing look what I found, and then playing the fight event, it's just
A little pie in the
a
sky.
little pie in the sky. And I tried to like line things up as best I could in some scenarios, but that is not the best idea. However, I don't think that blocked my ability to do well in the campaign because stapling one card and getting some extra actions every now and then is actually incredible.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, it is. And also, incidentally, because of what you were trying to do, you always had the money to play stuff,
Hmm.
right? Between eventually getting prophetic and then popping into the hot streak level twos, like as the deck evolved, it was like, yeah, no, there was no concern about whether or not you could afford these events. And like, it's not like Lucky and Live and Learn are expensive, and Evidence and On the Trail are only one, and Sweep and Kick's one, but like, you know, you play you play 2 events every turn at
Hmm.
those costs, and eventually you're going to bankrupt yourself. But there were only a couple of times when you were struggling to pay for things, and you were usually struggling to pay for the hot streak,
Yeah, at the beginning it was.
so that you could keep playing stuff the next couple of rounds afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a little bit of here's the level whatever deck. I will also say that there's like very little as far as fighting beyond assets that we saw: Brand of Cthulhu, Machete. There's just 3 copies of those things entirely. So everything else, uh, I know Edge of the Earth. Edge of the Earth is not a heavy fighting campaign. There's a couple of big health enemies, but the maps are big enough to let you maneuver around them. But um, we had no problem with enemies this campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that generally speaking, because of Marion being like a fighty flex in this instance, and me being like mostly clues, but being able to have a really high like evade or plinking damage with punches,
Hmm.
it was basically never a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
There were a few moments that were like, "Ooh, how do we deal with this?" But then it was just a matter of sitting down and thinking about it, right?
yeah, and I like Edge of the Earth for having kind of a variety of things that it makes you want to do. So I think a flex like Marion here really was good. I mean, I was sitting at a 4 intellect with upgraded Greta for quite some time, and often I was trying to investigate, trying to fail with even with upgraded. Look what I found here, and failing to fail.
And and that's the funny thing about um like these choices of look what I found and live and learn and lucky is and maybe even evidence is that they all are like timing, they're all played at times during skill tests, so
Hmm.
that chaining an event sometimes is like inconvenient or just doesn't make sense. um but I mean, obviously it's doing strong survivor stuff, right? Like lucky and live and learn and look what I found are like Stella's entire, or like, a
Yeah.
quarter of Stella's clue package, and Stella can gobble up clues like anyone's business.
Yep.
Um,
I'll sh-
with the resourcefuls in there too.
right.
So,
I'll shout out Lucky 2 here that this card is in the core set and usually looks like a waste of 2 XP, especially when you have a level 3 version around. But when your whole shtick is drawing cards by playing events, it's actually not a bad idea to have cards that also draw events, draw cards in general on them. So you think that, oh, Lucky level 0 is just Lucky level 2 because it already draws you a card in Marion, but drawing 2 cards, that's actually really,
right.
really strong.
Yeah. It's a big increase on the like value of any particular card. Um and frankly, like I know a lot of people say like Lucky does this thing where it kind of teaches you that yeah, you can actually just test under and pass tests without even having Lucky in your hand. And then so people just stop playing Lucky after a while. Like they're like, "Oh, my deck doesn't need Lucky. I'll just take the tests and if I fail, whatever,
Oh,
right? Like
well,
it's just
right.
one test." But when you're like kind of taking on a primary fighter role in a dual flex, it's really handy when you're not getting all the way up to +4s to have a Lucky. It's really handy when you're taking wild ass investigates to just have a Lucky, or for treachery protection, right? Like all throughout the whole campaign, you were playing really good Luckies.
Hmm.
Um, in addition to like wanting to fail a test and not.
It,
Um,
it was funny. Like I did like playing that quasi survivor thing without being totally locked into, say Tommy, who gets level 2 survivor, because you can see that there's 21 or bust here or hot streak for extra money.
that's
Even
right.
I think even her stat line encourages you to do basically anything, and that 2 willpower actually wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe I got incredibly fortunate that I never drew the tricky willpower treacheries, but
Maybe a little bit. I will say though that like the physical training for,
mhm.
um, I think that generally speaking, the core set level 4 cards,
Oof, they're so
people
good.
don't talk about them a whole lot, and I know that they're expensive on XP, but like, man, are they ever helpful?
Especially when you have a
Like,
quadrillion dollars.
well, yeah, that's the big thing is that the hot streaks and the 21 or bust, it just lets you dump money into stuff. And sometimes like I think people underestimate these a little bit because you build a deck to have enough money to play your cards early,
Hmm.
but then like the last couple of turns you have upkeep rolling in and maybe you've got like $7 unspent that you didn't meaningfully use. It's like these let you just make sure that your last couple of turns you can go, yeah, let's just cover the rest of the bag,
Hmm.
right? Let's just cover the rest of the bag. But because of the level 4 one having these replenishing resources, it's also like an early stat booster for 2 tests a turn or for one important test a turn, right? Um, so it serves so many purposes, that I think for 4 XP it actually is like a good solid choice.
I also think that
Genuinely.
in this sort of deck, where and maybe I feel like I'm blending over to other sorts of archetypes here, but Guardian does have some expensive stuff that
Yeah,
is really good when you can play it. And the economy I was able to generate with the prophetic, being able to pay for things, just generating resources in Hot Streak and 21 or Bust, made me not afraid to play things like this big chunky ally that costs 5 resources.
that's right. Yeah,
And if you look at Guardian and say this stuff just costs too much to get on the table, well, try again in Marion because I think you can get there. And then those cards start to really perform. And then physical training kind of as a backup of, well, I can make all this money. I better use it somehow beyond playing the ally. So,
well, and to be honest, like if you're not Fortune Marion, like there's no reason this hot streak couldn't be an emergency cash level 2.
that's true.
You know, play it, gain $3, draw 2 cards, and then play another event. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. I
Like
think that
that'll keep you afloat.
for sure. Like there's lots of zero cost stuff. One thing that's missing here that might be hilariously missing is there's no stand together, which
Oh
is
yeah,
technically in the card pool, but we were playing a little bit of a challenge I mean,
Yeah,
admittedly,
I guess
there,
that's a good segue into Susie, right?
yeah, admittedly, like there's 49 XP in this deck, so it's not like we had a bad time at all. It was a challenge, but it was also a little bit of a friendly challenge that we took what we called the Raven Lord's Gambit, where we took Stand Together out of the pool, which was meaningful because we both could have played it, and I think it would have been very good in Marion. And in
It would have been really good next to me because there were a lot of times that I was strapped for cash and couldn't afford to play all these insane amount of assets that are in my deck,
right,
right?
right, and instead we got Scrying Mirror, and the idea was if we got Scrying Mirror in play by the end of the scenario and kept it in play, uh, when the scenario ended, we got an extra VP. So a little bit of an encouragement to play an underplayed card, in our opinion. Although last year you saw all kinds of fun stuff with that card in Monterey Jack. Uh,
Yeah. Scrying Mirror is a card that always like it's so easy to underestimate this, but like knowing how much you need to put into a test as you start the test, not even like before you start the test, like premonition's really good for that as well, but it's an event and it's a one off.
mhm,
But like just playing this and saying, there, we have 4 tests across 4 turns or 4 or more turns where we'll know exactly how much we need to commit to pass it, or if it's an auto fail, we'll know that we're wasting an action as it begins.
mhm.
And it's just real nice,
I think
right?
especially in a limited card pool or when you're doing some kind of a challenge mode where you don't have the luxury of just I why would I need to see the token? It's either an auto fail or I pass the test, right?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
just
If you've
not
just got enough
true,
static boost to not care,
right?
right?
And that's just not
Yeah,
true in these decks, or I mean, I don't think it's that fun to play that way all the time anyway. But it's nice to figure out even where to use your bullets if you've got something that exhausts for plus 3 or 4. Like, don't use it now. We don't need it. Use something else.
that's right.
It's pretty good. I just want to finish
Right.
up talking about my deck real quick before we fully go over to yours.
Oh yeah, sure.
By saying this was some of the most fun I had playing recently. This is a new investigator, didn't really know what to expect. Some ideas what would pan out and what wouldn't. I mean, I think I already knew, and you agree that the determined card is kind of I don't know. I think I used it a few times, but it's mostly just like
So
a wild commit to a
I
treachery.
will say this: the way that you built Marion,
Hmm.
you have 5 events that initiate a skill test.
Yeah.
So you can build her in such a way that you have more, and this is a more reliable stat boost. So I think that, you know, while it's certainly not a great card, it definitely can be better than what we saw. Because I think it only happened one time that it committed to an event you played and returned to your hand.
Hmm.
So, whatever, right?
Yeah. I felt like
Um,
my hand was so full. I just had to get rid of stuff sometimes, and sometimes that just
yeah,
meant committing this to a different test, so I wasn't going to go over on
that's
hand
right.
size. But
And like, your hand is going to be full with a bunch of reactive cards, right?
yes,
Like
yes,
that's kind of the point.
yes.
But if these were things that had test printed on them, if they were, if you were improvised and you had an improvised weapon that you could just shove this into and test at -1 difficulty and +2 skill
Hmm.
with your determines without needing to have this physical training to give you plus combat, you know what I mean? Like there's there's a different deck that this makes more sense in, but I think it's interesting to see you don't need to play that deck,
Hmm.
right? And these are just a couple of wild icons you can pitch to tests now and again.
Yeah, this is not, I
If you're
mean,
not.
even beyond the whole fortune improvised or gambit choice, I think just the card pool is so rich for Marion, having the other 5 um, level 0 red cards as well, that this is just a wacky deck that was because of our card pool, and it made sense to me. But there's probably like 10 different decks you could play her with her, which is
Oh my god, yeah.
a huge win in design. I'm so pleased with how this turned out, but also it was just fun to play. Like if you watch the videos, you'll see that there were some wild turns where I was trying to line things up because I try to get full value out of my cards. I paid XP for that on the trail. I'm gonna go out of my way to to
Get the two
discover two
clues
clues.
and get the moves to be useful at a location with an enemy, and then land an attack. Yeah, the on the trail really impressed me in this campaign, and with Marion in particular.
Hmm.
Um, I'm certain I'm going to be playing this in her. There's
Yeah.
no way I'm not.
So I had a few turns where, in fact, I even got two clues off of evidence one, everyone's
Hell
favorite
yeah.
card. Yeah, hell yeah. So I think it impressed me. I know it impressed you just sort of to see that I picked up so many clues. With you're looking at it just these cards, but it felt very engaging. So I was thrilled to play the deck. I don't want to play her again for a little while because I just want this kind of glow to last a bit. But it was
The
very fun.
afterglow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it'll be fun. So I know you're gonna play her for your Drowned City blind run, right?
Yep.
So
That's right.
if you want to briefly share like what are you doing differently, obviously that with having a full card
Oh,
pool.
well, I'm pairing her with Lucius, so it's like a little different. I'm including let me think. So it's like two machetes, two grets, two safeguards, one wolf mask, one hollowed mirror, and a dark horse as
Mm-hmm.
one of my level 5, or not level 5, level 0 survivor cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually including jury rig in her as a way of boosting my machete stats up, right? Play another event, play jury rig off the back of it to boost up your machete.
Yep, makes sense.
Um, or I can play them on Lucius's, like, what did I include? Grim Memoir or Forensic Kit is what I was thinking. Kicking the Hornet's Nest to find guys, get clues, get money. Motivational speech, 1-2 punch.
Wow.
Oh, scrounge for supplies. That was one. I
That
thought scrounge for supplies would be a lot of fun in her.
that seems really good. You can just pick up it again. I played so many cards here that you could only play in a certain timing window, or if there's clues or
That's
whatever it
right.
is.
This
But
deck that I'm looking at here, it is a bunch of things that it's not so dependent on when you play them. Like they're more, I guess they're more like proactive
right.
events, right? All of these are play it, do a thing, play it, do a thing, not react upon playing. A single stand together. I thought I had two. Whatever. Two task force, two toe to toes, and then vicious blows and overpowers. So it's pretty different, I
Yeah,
think. And I think that the way that it plays its turns will look different, but ultimately, like I think it'll be pretty. It looks pretty good to me.
I think it'll
Um,
be great.
yeah,
That's gonna be what the fun part is, talking about playing her across different decks is maybe even that like proactive versus reactive play style will be an interesting discussion. I mean, it was a little bit frustrating to play it this way because you couldn't always use everything, and you were like, "Gosh, I just need to fail a test, or I just need to investigate, or something." But ultimately, as you all saw, this was still very, very good. So
mhm.
I don't necessarily think that there's like a best way to play her right now. Maybe there's like the most absolute busted version that you can come up with. Great, sure, you can do that, but all of these different styles seem to be effective. Like I would say off the bat, a reactive playstyle is not really that good, but that's not true. It was good.
Yeah, yeah. It was just more awkward than anything, right?
Yeah.
And if we'd have been a bit less lucky with token pulls when you were trying to fail stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we had more frost tokens, if yada yada yada. Uh, if we had gone with tablets instead of the cultist tokens or whatever,
Yep.
right? We would have had bigger negatives in the bag and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that all play into that.
Okay. Let's close the books on Marion for now, and let's go over to Susie. And I think I'd like you to talk about who she is because maybe many people don't know what we're looking at here. I'll go back over to TTS so you can kind of drive a bit if you want to talk about her investigator card.
Yeah, sure. So Susie is like print and play investigator that they released when they did I mean, I guess it was effectively Return to the Blob that ate everything, right? It was the
Yeah,
Blob that ate everything else.
that's right.
And they released her as a neutral investigator. So she's got 1/1/1 stat, like ones across the board. You begin play with your permanent in play, and your permanent is complicated because there's just a lot of text across a lot of cards. During each upkeep phase, you draw an additional card and you devour a non-weakness player card in your hand. And when you devour stuff, it interacts with Ravenous. So it goes underneath Ravenous. And for every card you have underneath Ravenous, you get +1 to each of your skills. Once Ravenous gets to +5 skills, or five or more cards beneath it, you flip it over. And now, each time you devour cards, you have to set it aside out of play. You still get +1 to all your skills for every card beneath Ravenous. And then at the end of your turn, you have to devour a non-story card beneath Ravenous to lower your stats, or one controlled by an investigator at your location. And then after doing that, if there's nothing beneath Ravenous, you flip it over. So basically, your stats are going to slowly go up during upkeep, or through this free triggered ability on her that lets you just devour another card at your location.
Hmm.
And then once it fills up and you're at 6s across the board, you're going to basically have this uncontrolled hunger occur where you're either lowering your stats or destroying the cards from the board. And they're just, once Ravenous is flipped over, uh, devoured cards are not going under Ravenous, they're going out of play
Hmm.
into like a separate zone where they can't really be retrieved except for from your signature card regurgitation that lets you just flip this over to the happy mode and then return 3 devoured cards either beneath it or out of play back to their owner's hands, and then heal some damage and horror. um so there's like a lot of moving parts and it's a lot to grant all at once.
Yeah,
um
it really is.
and then on top of that, she's 50 card deck. She has 3 copies of Regurgitation, 3 copies of Reality Acid, which does the total opposite. It reflips your Ravenous and makes you devour a bunch of random stuff based on this card, which was, to be frank, it was very fun. Like, this was goofy as hell.
It was.
Um, yeah.
I
And
think.
then you also have 2 basic weaknesses. So the deck is like,
Oof.
what is this? This is 58 cards normally before you start adding stuff. And then you also have deck building restrictions, no permanents, and you have this kind of Lola restriction where your deck must include at least 7 cards from each class. Uh, and then the last and maybe most important part of like how the deck evolved is that the cards that are devoured determine what you are allowed to spend experience on. So whatever you devoured the most of in a class, that's the class you have to spend XP on between scenarios.
Oof. Okay, let's
Um,
take a second here. Uh, that was okay. I had no idea going into this really what she was all about. I've read about her. I've kind of got the basic idea of like your stats go up and go down, but this whole meta game of like trying to figure out what to devour, and the fact that you do this twice per turn, sometimes twice per round, sometimes when this weakness side is here,
yep.
sometimes more, and then you figure out what to bring back, and this reality acid is just kind of nuts. um I don't know. This was I'm so impressed with how you were able to be really effective here. Obviously, the ability to have 5, 6s across the board and any card you want from the whole card pool is very strong, but it seemed like a lot to have to keep track of.
Yeah, it is a lot to keep track of, and it's a tough balancing act of trying to. I guess there's one thing is that like because you have so many cards in your deck, they necessarily need to be edible. Let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't want to draw 2 cards in upkeep and look at your hand and go, I can't devour any of these. So, like, fundamentally, I don't think she's going to work as like a strict combo thing. There's too many cards. You're not going to get your combo out. And if you do get your combo out, you might be forced to eat all of it, or else you lose all your stats and you're back down to 1/1/1. And it's like a slow burn, too, right?
Yep.
Like, being 6s in all your stats is great. and then you need to go to 5, and then you need to go to 4, and then you need to go to 3, and then you need to go to 2. And it's like being at floating in between 4 and 6 is like your kind of happy zone. When you're forced to spend like 3 turns in 3 stats, 2 stats, and 1 stats, and you need to be passing tests, you're in like a serious world of hurt. Because you're just not going to.
This was very funny. You got haunted as a RBW.
Yeah, that. I mean, that was almost a meme, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Like if it was one of those things where like if it pops up early enough, you just clear it, and if it pops up late enough, you just tank it.
I
Which I don't know. To be frank, I don't think that that's any different from how anyone else approaches haunted.
No, that's true.
Um,
But it is funny because it's
I
like
should.
you already all have that weakness basically as part of your thing, so you're
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um. So there's a few things, I guess. There's a lot there's a lot going on. There's a decision matrix that occurs, like you said, once or twice every round, depending on whether you're in controlled or uncontrolled hunger.
mhm.
When you're in uncontrolled hunger, you have to look at your whole board state and say, is there anything here I can devour so that I don't lose stats? And if not, is there anything at my location that I can devour that anyone else would be happy to give up that so I don't lose stats? Or am I okay to lose stats and have the things under Ravenous go away?
Now you
Now
played
you can
with
get them.
you played with me, which meant that I had very little on the board.
That's right. Yeah,
So you didn't really have that option, and only two player means you're not really looking around at anyone else's mat saying, "Hey, do you have an empty asset?"
that's right. And so part of the strategy, at least in my level 0 deck, and maybe I don't know if you have it open, but my
Sure.
level 0 deck had like 2 copies of flashlight, 2 copies of magnifying glass, a ritual candle,
Hmm.
2 switchblades, 2 leather, or sorry, a leather jacket, 2 talisman of protections. I have a bunch of fast assets, and 4 allies. I'm saying 6 of which are disposable, but realistically, it's like 4 of them are disposable. The lab assistants and the medical students are disposable, and then like Jeremiah is like kind of disposable.
Did Dr.
Like
Milan survive to the end? I don't think so, right?
I'm pretty sure that Dr. Milan was always consumed from my hand.
Oof.
Um, Maybe there was one scenario where I got him into play and kept him in play for a bit for some stats.
Yeah.
I know there was one where I had Jeremiah in play and kept him for stats, but ultimately, like when you have a 50 card deck, nothing's gonna reliably be hitting play.
And you can't take
Um,
charisma, so these guys are really just they interplay
yeah,
maybe and then they're gone.
that's just it. Yeah, if they enter play, you immediately soak with them or you eat them
I
and then play a new one.
I like the medical student theming here. Can I get course credit for this?
Yeah.
Getting devoured.
Um,
I mean, these are all these scientists, right, that are having to study Susie from the inside now.
yeah, it's good. It's good coursework.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, but ultimately, like there's kind of like a okay. Well, if I play fast assets that I can just dump from my hand for money, then I'll be able to consume them to keep my stats up higher. And like, if that is a thing that you thought would work, then yes, it just does.
Hmm.
Um, the trick though is having the money to actually play them, because if you don't have the money to play them, then it's gonna suck. And we saw that whenever I played 21 or bust and busted twice in the same scenario, right?
Yeah, it just gave up all your
Um,
money at the beginning. That
and
was
gave up
really
all my
rough.
money. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but generally speaking, they're also pretty cheap, right? Like the Switchblade magnifying glass cost 1, and I upgraded one of the magnifying glasses to cost 0.
Hmm.
The jury rig costed 0. The jury rig, I felt like that was such a cute include where it's like I play it on your machete or my Switchblade, and then I eat it, and then later I eat the Switchblade.
Yeah.
um, you know, uh, and then like as the deck went up in experience, it was like, okay, as I'm leveling things up, what am I even looking for? How do I know what to level up? Well, I want to make sure I keep leveling up card draw because seeing anything at all is crazy inconsistent. So I picked up the 2 cryptic research like right away, I think.
Yeah,
Like they may have been my first 8 experience.
absolutely they were.
Um
So you had to be able to devour enough secret things first you actually
Mhm.
had a little bit of a benefit from the card pool because we had so many Edge of the Earth cards having multi-class, right? So you could count them for
Yes,
multiple things.
that's right. And so when I got to the end of scenario one and I had devoured, like, I don't know off the top of my head what it actually was, but let's just say it was like medical students and lab assistants and magnifying glasses. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm expecting to devour these. What are the chances that this medical student actually tips Guardian into the most favored thing? Not very high, because I have toe to toes, vicious blows, and machetes. I want to play a machete. I want to play a toe to toe. I want
Hmm.
to commit a vicious blow, and I don't want to eat my safeguard. So like that's probably not what I'm going to need to upgrade. Um,
So I think over the course of
so
the campaign, it was almost difficult not to then continue to have Seeker be the highest one, right?
that's right. Yes. It kind of got to a point where I was like, ooh, this scenario is almost over, and I need to take an accounting of what is currently devoured, so that if I think I want to upgrade something else, I need to make some tougher decisions on what's being devoured, because or like use my regurgitation to send me back things I don't necessarily need to win the scenario, but need to fix my devour count.
Hmm.
Um,
That's wild,
and I
man.
guess on the topic of regurgitation, one thing that was really interesting about it is like you see her having 6/6 sanity and horror, and like while that is a hindrance, um, so long as it doesn't kill you, you actually have like, you know, +9 to this.
Yeah. You actually
Uh, you
reliably
know,
did draw, I don't know, two or three of them.
yeah. That's the one thing that was kind of interesting is, you have a 50 card deck, but you're drawing two during upkeep.
True.
Um, and I included a fair amount of card draw. I mean, I didn't include as much as I possibly could have. Um, but given the limited card pool, I definitely tried to include like the cryptic researches were really nice. But also just I always forget that you can play cryptic research on someone else. Like it's
Hmm.
such a combo card for seekers that like uh playing it on you, like you'd maybe you popped your weakness, and then I was
Yeah.
like, oh, here, have three cards back, right?
Yeah. I
Um,
didn't really talk about my weakness, but that did help. Even just
yeah,
sometimes not finding anything good, that was a nice way to refill the hand.
yeah. Also maybe contributed to you constantly having way too large of a hand, but not too big, too
No.
too bad. Um,
So what was your, I mean, you mostly got clues, but how did you do it? What was like the way that Susie actually performs rather than having to think about the metagame here the whole
right.
time?
So the way that you get clues, or at least the way that this deck got clues, was by aggressively popping the magnifying glass into play, aggressively popping all of the fast assets into play, and just eating them early, right?
Yep.
Turn one, if I can play magnifying glass, play switchblade, and then boom, eat that switchblade. At upkeep, I'll eat another card. That'll put me at 3/3/3, 3, and I'll be at 4 intellect next round with my magnifying glass,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
You kind of just early on, you just eat an extra card, right? If you can, and that's the advantage of all the fast cards. But I gotta say, there was an awful lot of investigating for one clue. Um, and so bonus actions would have helped there.
Yeah. Well, you did get them. You had Blur, right? Where's that? Over here.
Yeah, up here. Eventually, I had blur.
Hmm.
Eventually, I had the ice picks. I mean, I did have deduction early on, and I did have working a hunch early on, but those kind of like fell by the wayside very quickly
Hmm.
for other stuff. I did have the divination, but like it, it never seemed to come up that I would get more than two. I would ever need to get three, so it was kind of a weird. Divination never really paid out that well.
This thing over
But the Eon
here,
charts,
mineral specimen.
yeah, mineral specimen. The Eon chart was really good for just providing moves and like spending on action to get +6 actions over 3 turns and then devouring it for stats,
Yeah.
right? That's really good. But at the same time, in the future, if I were to play Susie again, I might seriously consider having a lucky cigarette case level 3 instead of an Eon shard. The
Just to
reason being is
find the stuff that you
just
want.
to find stuff, to find your good cards, right? Because you have good cards in the deck, right?
Hmm.
There are good cards in this deck. Um, you just have a lot of expendable ones as well.
I feel like you
And
had the
your
look what
good
I
cards,
found and you never used them because failing was not really something that Susie ever did. I mean,
yeah,
ideally you would, but not when you had this in your hand.
yeah, that's right. These got consumed a lot. These got devoured a lot. The burning the midnight oil, if I had too much money, that got devoured. The drawn to the flames got devoured a decent amount.
Hmm.
They're more just like stopgap measures in case things were going wrong, and things never really went that wrong. Um,
Well, there
kind of
was.
it, the same can maybe be said of the take heart, but I think I committed that to you for willpower tests.
Yeah, I don't remember this even being in your deck. I mean, it's hard for me to remember 50, 60 cards in the deck anyway, but uh,
That's just it.
I,
Yeah.
I found this to be like extremely fun to watch just because I was like, what is going on over there? Uh, and I think early in the campaign, I thought, wow, this is a busted investigator. But I
Yes,
think
but
about,
then we got
yeah,
brought slapped back down to reality acid.
I think that was like
Um,
3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way through the campaign where we saw that the consistency is just not there. And then if you start drawing these, it's really bad. It sets you back so much.
yes. So like the play that I mentioned earlier, right? I play my magnifying glass, I play my switchblade, I eat the switchblade.
Hmm.
Next round I'll be at 3-4, 3-3. I upkeep into a reality acid. This flips over. I have to devour random cards from your and mine deck. It devours one of my regurgitations, and now my stats are going down and I have one card in play. Right?
Yeah.
Like situations like that can and will happen.
Plus,
Um,
when you draw this during upkeep, you still need to devour another card in your hand because
from your hand.
this is a weakness, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's not going under this, it's going out of play.
Right.
So the two cards you drew, one of them was reality acid, and then you're devouring a card from your hand
Hmm.
plus the one that you would have drawn. So you're not getting anything new, or you're getting one new card where you're eating something you didn't play last round, right? Um, yeah, so the swinginess of reality acid we really didn't see until a couple scenarios in, right?
Hmm.
I don't even think was it the mountain that it started happening, or was it like City of the Elder
I think it was
Things when it
mostly City
really
Elder
hit us?
things where things started to go bad. Like our mountain run was really good, and then that the next couple scenarios, I don't think I can say they're bad, but we had some very uncharacteristically slow starts.
Yes, yeah, and that's the thing is you can have such an explosive start with her if you mulligan for a couple of assets, you play them, and then you eat them.
Hmm.
Um, and then you've got like just good value stuff in the rest of your hand, right? Um, it if you hit this reality asset at a bad time, then you're just hosed. Um, which is, I mean, that's part of that's the design that goes into like a 50 card deck that has 3 weaknesses and 3 signature cards.
Oof.
It is inherently going to be spikier. You're not going to see your one weakness once passing through the deck. You're going to see 3 of it, and sometimes you see all 3 of them before you see your regurgitations.
Yeah. And then you are sitting there saying, I still have ones. Like
Yes, I
what
still
do I
have
do now?
ones. Please help me. The
Right.
only thing I've been able to do is look what I found,
Hmm.
right? Because nothing else in this deck. It's these 2 cards.
Yeah.
Uh, in the final version, play into the failure aspect. Everything else is expecting stats.
Yeah. Well, I like I said, I had fun watching this. Uh, we did well. I mean, at the end, I mean, in this particular campaign, like having the uh, million stats is crazy with cards like Mineral Specimen, where you are testing up a million.
Oh
You,
yeah, yeah. You get your +5 on top of this base 5,
yep,
and you're testing 10 and canceling the frost tokens. Like that's silly.
yep.
Oh, I just noticed that Kensler's log's missing from this. I wonder if I didn't have that in the deck for the finale.
Oops.
Whoops. Oh, well,
Anyway, the other thing was the partners also give you the same sort of base 5. So
yeah, that's
there's
right.
at some point you had that. So yeah, we had a lot of good stuff. It was just interesting to see these. Well, I mean, I'd never played Marion, and you hadn't really done the whole Susie thing over a number
Yeah,
of
I hadn't
scenarios.
seen it unfold. I hadn't seen the upgrading unfold, and that was the part that really got me. Was like, oh, right. Like I'd get to the end of the scenario and go, "Whoof, I don't know, but I want to upgrade Seeker again." Right?
Well, you did. You
I
got the
just spent.
Necronomicon.
Well, I did, and I got the Necronomicon, and it was actually pretty good. I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
Um, in the last, because I got that going into the Heart of Madness Part 2,
Yeah,
and I think there were a fair amount of I actually was primarily using it for the +2 skill value, wasn't I?
you were. And
I
actually,
kept using it for +2s.
you got it back in your hand and then got it back into play afterwards, right, with the regurgitation.
Yes, I definitely regurgitated it at least once, which was really cool. Um, that's I guess that's one thing kind of to mention is like, expendable cards and cards with uses that don't discard after they're used.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can just basically get a bunch of recharges with regurgitation. It just costs a lot of play actions. That's the thing, which is why the fast stuff is so good. Um,
Even at the end, I believe
Switchblade,
you used Switcherblade and actually got the +2 damage out, or +1 damage.
yeah, I switchbladed one of the pylons,
Yeah,
right?
you did.
With a vicious blow committed too, I think.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. But like, if you're thinking about the rest of the card pool, like obviously Switchblade level 2 is really good, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's other fast assets, like Solemn Vow is a fast asset that you can just play for 0. It goes in front of the other investigators. They can move damage over onto you, and then you regurgitate to heal it.
Oh gosh, that's disgusting. Literally.
Um, yeah. Um, I'm trying to think other fast things. Obfuscation is a fast asset where, like, I mean, canceling attacks of opportunity is kind of marginal, but still, it's another 2-cost fast asset that you can play. I guess the Uncanny Specimen too, but I mean, the Uncanny Specimen I think is more about, you know, re-pulling a token and drawing a card
Hmm.
than to eat it.
But it
Um,
is fast and takes up like not even really a slot.
yeah, that's true.
You get them all out at once. You suppose you could eat
What
them up
else
pretty
is what
quickly.
else is fast in the wider card pool?
Sword
The
Cane too.
25 auto, but that's kind of marginal.
Yeah, that's pretty
Fire
expensive.
Axe upgrade.
Fire Axe would be interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. Sword Cane.
it's hard to think about her in the
Um,
whole card pool because even
yeah,
this giant. I mean, I don't know how you did it with here. This is like a lot of really just some of the best cards you've ever seen are in front of you right
mhm,
now.
that's
So
right. Oh, one thing that I was talking about or I don't know if I said it much on camera, but one thing I was talking about as like, ooh, I could spend XP on this, the composures.
mm,
I never had the XP to do it. I think one of the times that I was forced to upgrade Survivor, I only got 2 and I wanted 3 for Plucky. But like realistically, those are like a fast card that you can like put a damage or 2 on and then eat it, right?
wow,
And it's giving you stats in the interim.
that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you'd be able to do that I really just didn't do here. Which is fine.
The other thing that we
Yeah.
found was interesting was that you can't use the ability printed on her, the free triggered ability to devour a story card. And we often
Yes.
had story cards.
That's right. I've always kind of wondered, like, hey, once these are in my deck, are they really a story card anymore, or are they just one of my player cards? But whatever.
Yeah.
This is here so that you don't brick scenarios more than so that you don't eat, these things that are. I think this is more about not bricking scenarios than it is about not eating things that the campaign has added to your deck.
I agree. I mean, these
Um,
could be in your hand and then you're allowed to devour them. So,
Well,
uh,
yeah, and that's the funny thing, right? It doesn't have that same limitation on the upkeep one, and it's because to me, my thought is, well, if it's in your hand, it was in your deck,
mhm.
right? And if it was in your deck, then it can't be that important.
Well,
It's
TFA
not.
would tell you that you better not devour that Relic of Ages in the last scenario. Otherwise,
All right.
you do
We'll
brick the
keep it.
scenario.
That's fair. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. We won't do that.
All right.
I
Any,
guess
yeah, other thoughts you had?
the only other thing maybe notable about Susie, and we mentioned it like briefly, is that no permanence. It's like you have to get used to the idea of you're gonna have one ally, you're gonna have one accessory. Um, it was very interesting. At one point, I talked about maybe upgrading one of my allies to be Michael Lee
Hmm.
because that's like a bonus intellect and a bonus combat, and then your investigates turn into storing up vicious blows, basically, right? Um, but like, am I really going to spend 5 XP on one copy of an ally that I might not even see in my 50 card deck, and put him in a slot that like I kind of might need to eat something from so that I can play a med student to clear our, arm injury and frostbitten and
Panic.
and
Yeah.
panic? Like, it just seemed like a really big ask, despite the fact that it would have been a really good card. If I'd have had another ally slot, then it would have been a great card. But I don't think that it would have made sense given that restriction of not being able to take charisma.
I think it's that, and I mean, these it goes together with the lack of charisma. But for Susie, just watching, I felt like there was no guarantee that anything you ever played was gonna last more than a turn.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And do you really want to
I,
spend 5 XP on something that really gets good because it's, sitting there and exhausting for 3 turns, building up this vicious blow inventory, and then you're just like, you know what, I actually need to devour this. I don't think that's worth it for one card in your deck.
no, that's right. That I totally agree. Um, you wouldn't want to, yeah, you wouldn't want to accumulate a bunch of evidence on him and then go, oh fuck, I gotta eat this guy.
Yep, because
Like
you
we gotta,
he's slow to
what's
use his
that? What's
evidence
that?
too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was trying to think of what that meme is where they're like, Steven Universe, and he's like, Steven, I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, and I think it's like Hitler or something. Anyways, uh, like
You heard it here
Susie,
first.
Susie, I think we're gonna have to eat this guy.
Yeah. Apparently Michael Lee is
It's
Hitler.
like Chuck Fergus or
Right.
something. I don't know.
Y-
Um,
yeah, so like spreading your XP out makes sense not just because of the 50 cards, but also like how much utility you get out of them. So even the ice pick, which theoretically could have been there to give you +1 for several rounds, you just pretty much put it in there and popped it.
well, yeah, that's actually a good point. I'm wondering if I even needed to buy the third level ice pick, or whether this could have just been the level 1 ice pick and acting as an extra copy of magnifying
Hmm.
glass. You know what I mean? And to just because like once I got the ice pick and play, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to use these for clues. This is actually, this replaced my deduction, and
Right.
it was replacing my deduction.
Yep.
Um, so this made it like the most expensive deduction level 0 imaginable.
Look, I can see this deck. Susie loves to eat sharp objects. We've got a machete, we got some
Got
ice
glass.
picks, we've
Yeah.
got a switchblade, got a bunch of glass inside of the mag glass and the scrying mirror.
She also likes to eat cloth, bandages,
Yep.
a book, her leather jacket.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, it's and also bugmen. She loves eating bugmen.
Oh yeah.
Because, like we said, there's no way that Dr. Milan does not sample the goods.
That's right. So she got a twofer there, both
Yeah.
Milan and probably that large crustacean thing in the back.
I will say that the pickpocketing was a very dubious choice.
For your Carcosa card, yeah.
Yeah, like it was fine. It was another fast asset, and I kind of put it on this side of like stuff I'd prefer not to devour. Or like assets I'd prefer not to devour. But like realistically, how many times did I actually pickpocket after I picked this up? Like 5 times, like total in the campaign. Like it really was not much.
No, but also in the last scenario, there was a lot of hopes that you were going to be evading, and the Chaos Bag told you to buzz off.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. The pickpocketing is unsurprisingly, the pickpocketing showed up the most and had the largest amount of successful reactions in the scenario where we are consistently at the same location as an elite enemy at all times.
Yep.
Surprise, surprise. We didn't see this coming. That's definitely not why I thought that this would be an okay pick. Um, I will say, obviously, like having 6 in all your stats is just really gross. It's kind of silly. There were definitely in the first couple of scenarios when I was able to keep it at 6, get to 6 quickly and keep it at 6. Like I wasn't seeing the reality assets at inconvenient times. I was a little worried. You know,
Hmm.
Ice and Death Part 1, 2, 3. I was like, ooh, this is what this looks like with a limited card pool. Like this might be busted. I don't know if I feel okay about this, but fortunately, the reality acid came in with the humbling.
So you ready to play Calvin next?
I am never ready to play Calvin. Calvin scares me. I've played him through Dunwich once a long time ago, like on release. Um, and I got like a positive ending, but it was the positive ending where you're like lost in time and space forever, but you saved Arkham. And I think I won like a scenario the whole campaign,
Oof.
leading up to that because he just couldn't do anything and died. But by the finale, he had some really good stats,
Yeah, exactly.
and we were able to pull it together. Um,
I will say, like
I'm just
having
looking at
having watched her, like the difference between that I always kind of get on Calvin for, and I'm not someone who gets on Calvin as much as most people, but the action compression that you can get out of all of the best assets in the game, right, makes it so that having the sixes is good, but also you can, use this divination, you can use the Necronomicon, Dr. Milan, whatever else. Like you have everything at your disposal. The stats are, I don't want to say like a besides the point, but like what's the best part about Susie? Hard to say. All these things are very good.
well, yeah, that's just it, right? Like the only real limiter is the the even spread of the cards, the
Hmm.
7 from each class. Because like realistically, like I didn't really need much in the way of Guardian cards come the end of the campaign.
No.
Like I didn't really need these vicious blows. I didn't really need this machete. Once I got the Aeon charts, I didn't really even need the safeguard, right? Once I got the Aeon charts, this kind of went over here, where it
Yeah,
was like, I can play this, and if I get like a move or two out of it before I devour it, then it's still saving me stats, right?
that's right.
Um, so like realistically, it's not that these were like hampering my deck, but it was certainly, you know, this could have been something else. 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 But it couldn't because I needed to maintain the balancing of the classes.
Hey, I liked being
Um,
safeguard buddies. That was fun.
yeah, Safeguard Buddies is actually great. Safeguard anytime you're with a guardian and you can both take Safeguard, that's actually a lot of fun. Um, which is funny because we actually split up quite a bit, right?
Well,
Realistically,
yeah,
um,
that's the nature of being flexes, I suppose.
yeah, that's right. Um, I was just looking at uh, the tokens that we never saw, right? Because we're playing on standard, like -5, 3 cards of choice from your hand. Disgusting. -6, all events from each investigator's hand.
No.
-7, 1 non-story, non-weakness asset from each investigator's play area.
Hmm.
And then 8, a non-weakness signature card in any player's deck, hand, discard pile, or play area. So you just yeet someone's signature card
Fine with me.
from anywhere, which is hilarious. That would have been a nothing. I think I auto-failed Reality Acid twice.
Yes.
And
And
that,
I, I think you got the tablet once too. Each event played by investigators at your location, and I was like, I am not going to your location. No, thank you.
yes. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And oddly, I think that the tablet made me devour or regurgitation,
Which is good.
right?
Yeah.
I played a regurgitation and it went into my stomach, and it was like the next regurgitation will put regurgitation back. It's weird. It's very funny to me that the tablet is like actually kind of a a benefit if you can happen to make it line up nicely.
Now the elder sign had a
Oh
very
yeah, did
funny
I get that once?
once, yeah, because it ate my panic
Yes, yes, that's right. It ate your panic, which is hilarious, I think.
because I just drew it like literally the same upkeep phase, and since I was lead investigator, I actually had it play before you did your nonsense here. So
It's
yeah,
very funny to think of the thematic behind that, because like realistically, like this is very much conveyed as Susie opening up her head and eating stuff like a Venus flytrap.
yeah,
And so like, you know, uh say I, eat all of the events from your hand, Susie like comes over and mucks you up enough that you've lost the ability to, taunt people and you don't have the gumption to do a sweeping kick anymore. You're, all confused and stuff. But like, what the heck is she doing to eat your panic?
I don't know.
She is sliding up to you and like sucking on the back of your head for a moment and being like, yum. And then you're like, oh, I, f- I feel, I feel better.
I am no longer afraid because I've been
Yeah.
this monster is here. Well, it's a good place to end our video to say that what did happen to our hapless duo here? Did Marion, who was playing this campaign with Susie, end up getting her arm back?
No, not a chance.
No,
No. No, it's long gone.
long gone. Okay.
Um, I have a feeling that maybe Susie's arm injury has something to do with it. Like
It's
clearly Susie's like eating stuff,
right.
right? But like all of this stuff that's in her deck, is this stuff that she's like she has eaten and then she's using her slime to re-replicate it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it like stuff that she's like encountering, using, and then being like, oh,
I think this is
yum.
stuff she's devoured. Like the arm injury here, like
That's
this,
almost like a guilty conscience thing.
I think it's just the arm injury is there's an arm she has devoured, and because she's eaten these like machetes and ice picks and whatnot, the arm is now injured. So
That's your injured arm that
exactly
I ate.
right.
Yeah. So until I get a campaign ending that removes an injury from my deck, no, Marion's arm is still missing.
Oh man. All right. Well, thank you, Pax, for joining me on another campaign play along and just talking some nonsense for the last month or so.
Yeah,
It's
no
been a good
problem.
time, and I
Oh
hope
yeah, absolutely. That was a great campaign.
everyone's enjoyed it. We'll do it again sometime, but we'll have to say that hopefully by now, maybe by now, there's a campaign that will be going up on Pax's channel too, where we will be playing alongside Philion through another campaign. I don't know if I should say anything now, but check it out.
We'll leave it up for suspense. You can check it out on youtube.com/@Bradley Galbraith.
Your full professional name. We love to
My
see it.
full legal name, like a genius.
All right, man. We'll see you later.
Bye.